Hello. Welcome to Office Hours with Arrow, a LinkedIn Live event hosted by Arrow leaders who care about what senior living looks like. I'm your host and producer, Rachel Sheehan. Our topic today is all about celebrating pride with your resident base. And with me today are Shannon and Amanda. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
We're back.
I'm so excited. I've been wanting to do this all day, but I wanted to have an OOTD moment with you all because I've noticed that on every single video that's come over the last few LinkedIn Lives that we've done, our speakers have been wearing Arrow wear. And so I was like, I pulled out my special You Matter Pride Arrow wear for today's conversation. I'm very excited about it. Shannon, what are you wearing today?
Gosh, I went old school. I went back to our roots, which is the unapologetically supportive ally shirt.
You should see it. Your name is blocking it, at least for me.
My name is blocking.
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
A little bit.
Do model.
There we go.
Unapologetically, yeah, supportive.
Yeah. So this was one that we partnered with a business on to purchase these. It's their design. And we worked with them and they did our logos on them. And now this is kind of part of our standard. And it's one of my favorite shirts. And I don't want to brag, but I'm going to because I totally found them first. And I started a revolution. So I got to celebrate that.
I love it. I always say that shirt gets me the most compliments out of all of our Arrow wear. I love it. I'm just wearing our Arrow jacket today, which is what you get when you're a long time, at least 90-day employee. And I think I'm like at 2,000 days or something now. I don't know, but something like that. I've been around. So how fun. I love
Welcome
that.
to today's discussion. I've been looking forward to this ever since we decided we were going to talk about it.
Yeah. Me too. This is one of my favorite things to talk about ever because I feel like a lot of people are like, you guys just are, you know what you're doing and we don't. And I'm really excited to talk about the journey that we've gone on to even make people believe we know what we're doing.
I know, it's hilarious. So for those who are tuning in, one of the things that Shannon and Rachel and I wanted to talk about was like, how do you address the topic of pride with your resident base and or with your employee base? Or how do you even approach it with your leadership base if you are somebody watching and you're like, I wish that we were doing more during the month of June or in general to support LGBTQ+. How do I even begin? And so I figured we could jump in and kind of, we'll probably hop all over the topics. But I thought maybe we could start with, years ago, I was very interested in figuring out how we could create some culture moments within the organization. And I was wanting to celebrate Black History Month, Pride. And I had approached our CEO at the time and another member of the C-suite. And I had brought it up. Like I brought it up one year and everybody was kind of too nervous to deal with it. And so then the next year I brought it up and everybody was still like, I don't know that this is really a topic that we really want to engage with. And then by year 3, I was like, we are doing this. Like I appreciate that everybody's nervous and uncomfortable or fearful about how it will be perceived, but we are going to do this. We are going to start having a conversation. And, I will say now, our CEO has publicly acknowledged multiple times that she's glad that we did the push, that she's glad that we are doing it now. But I think that there's a reality that for those who aren't comfortable having these conversations or even knowing where to start, sometimes it's easier to just not do anything, or it feels like that might be the case. And we face that too as an organization, but I'm so happy that we kind of broke through that and we're like, we're gonna just start. And there were multiple times that we made attempts to begin conversations with our staff, even to get them comfortable to then be like, we do want to acknowledge this. We do want to celebrate this, or we do want to participate, and getting staff comfortable, dealing with our resident base and how they responded to it. And I will tell you, there were multiple times throughout the years that we have been doing this that we did it wrong. Like we learned a lot of things. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I'm proud to say that we did it, or we started the conversation. So that's where I wanted us to jump in, but I don't know what you guys want to contribute.
Rachel's nod tells me that I'm next. So this has been one of those journeys where like it's been a lot of missteps. I remember in the first 2 years of celebrating that we spent so much time on all of our all calls talking to our department heads and our teams of how to get through this because they faced negative feedback. There were residents who were just like they were not for it. There were team members that were absolutely not for it. And so the first couple of years, even though we wanted to wanted to focus on the celebration, the focus actually really ended up being on how do we actually get to do a celebration and how do we respond to this feedback. So we did so much coaching, so many conversations, so many one-offs, so many pivots because I mean it's not the easiest topic to broach with everyone, even though it, to me, to us, it feels like it's like, okay, well, we like this is a thing. These are people that exist in the world and they like everybody should have the opportunity to be seen and feel included. And just have kindness like directed toward them no matter who they are, because that's really the most important thing is life is like who are you making feel included and who are you being kind to today. So those first years were rough.
Well, and I think Rachel, you have a very interesting perspective because when we began this journey, you were a resident services director at one of our communities. So you were one of those folks that were right there at the front of the line that we were asking to join what might have felt like an uncomfortable conversation, but a necessary one. So I'm excited to hear your perspective.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I just thank you for starting this because I would not have grown professionally or personally the way I have. And I would not have seen even this month in the light I see it now because of what we've done. And so being in a community where I had residents who were in my office pointing fingers at me, I wasn't used to that because as resident services, everyone loves you. You're the party girl. You do all the fun things, And so it was hard for me because I am also a very sensitive person. And so knowing that I just had to kind of almost stand up to the residents and say, this isn't what you think it is. Like, this is about, just as Shannon said, like being kind. Like, we don't tolerate anything other than that here, other than respect. And so it was more focused on that and showing them, as we can talk about a little more, the colors of the flag and how can you be against these things that these represent. And so it was hard, like I said, but now it's just, it still is hard for a lot of people because a lot of people haven't done this yet, or this might be their first year doing Pride with us. But it does get better and it's fun. It's just something, it doesn't, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And I think that's like half of our traditions sometimes. They're important and it's important to educate on it. And that's what it's about.
Which I think you hit it, like the piece for me when I was first like, where do we even begin? Like, how do you even start? And I think education is always the place where you begin when something feels uncomfortable. And so we really did just very simply started with like, let's understand the history of the day or like the movement or the experience. And let's like break down the flag. Like it was the easiest thing to like, what does the flag represent? What do these colors represent? Let's just start there. And if only this year we talk about the colors of the flag, we've at least started the conversation. I do think too, that one of the things that I still don't know that we've really like figured out the best way to communicate this across the portfolio yet, but I'm hopeful that we will, is I think because we're choosing to pay attention or have a conversation, there's a group of people that believe that we are then also asking them to change their belief structure or they have to change what they think. And I don't know that we're doing the best job at saying, we're not asking you to change what you believe. We're just asking you to make space for something else to exist that is different than you or different than what you believe. And it doesn't mean that you have to believe it or buy into it or participate, but you do have to make space for this other thing to happen, just like we make space to celebrate things or to learn about things that are important or matter or validate you. And so again, we're not perfect at it yet, but I think that that's the other thing that we we've been trying to like negotiate and help people understand.
And
I think the base of it is,
sorry.
I think the base of it is we're not asking you to change. We are asking you to respect the person next to you and to treat them with kindness. So you don't have to agree. I guarantee there are things the three of us do not agree on, but that has nothing to do with us as individuals. Like, it doesn't mean that we all have to agree on everything. It would be really boring if we did, but we do have to be respectful of each other as people and like make space for everybody to exist, because we're all going to exist and we all want the best for each other. So I think that's the base of it, is we just have to make space and be respectful.
And I love that phrasing of it too, because I think it goes back to the power of choice. Like, our whole event programming is huge, wide range, and they can choose to participate in something or not. And that's kind of, I think, what goes back to this. Like, you don't have to participate in this. Like, that's the beauty of a decision. So.
Well, and I do want to give a shout out. We didn't come to this place alone. Like, we've had a lot of support and education. And, you know, one person that I'm always so grateful for is Ayana King, who does a lot of like our DEI education and our leadership growth development. And I think Ayana has always done an amazing job of like creating conversation. And honestly, we found Ayana on LinkedIn, and quite frankly, she's the reason that we do LinkedIn Lives, because she's like, you guys really should do more live things. So thank you, Ayana, for that idea. But because of Ayana, she has created opportunities for us to learn and ask questions. And today, I think you guys had Ayana on the Resident Services All Call, which is something we do once a week, where we bring department heads together in their own separate like virtual calls. And today's conversation, I think you guys were prepping resident services directors for Pride, and I'm curious to hear how that conversation went.
So we did it. It's actually going to be on 3 different calls today, and it was really, it was kind of a back to the roots, honestly, a little bit like this, where we talked about why these are important, why we're doing them. And so it was funny while I'm on them, because knowing I'm coming into this and listening and supporting Ayana, because so many of the things she was saying and so many of the like things that I wanted to say back, I was like, oh yeah, this was for LinkedIn. But it all ties together so closely, because we were spending a lot of time on, you know, how are you presenting traditions in general, but especially the challenging ones in your communities, and how are you getting buy-in? What changes and growth have you seen? And it's just really cool thinking about where we started 4 years ago and looking at the fact that, you know, this is now part of Wednesday department head, where they are going through everything that's happening in the month and talking about how everybody can get involved together and how everybody can support and how to approach things. And so it's just been like, it was just such a like humbling, cool experience to just think about the last 4 years in that journey. And 4 years, I'm going to say it's 4. But that's what we talked about, was honestly the base of this. And because Ayana has such a unique and cool way of saying things, that we really wanted to bring her in as a support, because I think, you know, everybody gets tired of hearing us talk, right? That's why we're doing the LinkedIn and making them hear us talk. But I do have to add to the shout out. Having Ayana has really helped to make us feel brave, and to realize that we not only can, but should have these conversations for the people that have never been able to be seen before, or that are still nervous, to give them that safe space.
Yeah, and that's exactly, we had a resident services director today talk about, this is a different tradition, but she said, if you're struggling with a tradition this year, it's going to be better next year, because that's exactly what happened for them. And so I think that's like some hope, is it might be growing pains. Like I said, I've grew a lot that one event, you know, so.
Well, and I think for those listening who might be considering, where do I start, or like, how do I advocate for doing an effort like this? It does get easier, and it does get better. And I think it's baby steps, and it's I don't know if it's creating a boundary, but it's kind of drawing a line that's basically like, no, this is this is going to happen, or we are going to do this. And Rachel, you said something that was interesting. It's very easy for a leader at a community to be like, home office is making me do this. To kind of pass the baton or the buck to someone else, to be like, I'm so sorry that we have to celebrate Pride. I'm being made to do it. It's an entirely different message when all of the leaders unite and they're like, no, this is something that we're going to celebrate, which I think, especially for the employee base, look, it's positive twofold. One, if you think that you have employees working in your companies that are not gay or are not transgender, you're just delusional. That is happening. You are employing people that are part of this community. And so to not create a space where you show that we're a safe place to work, it's a place where you can come and you're going to be accepted and seen. That's so important. And two, you think about the resident population that we serve. So many of the residents who might be gay or in this population who have never felt comfortable to acknowledge it in any way, shape, or form. So I did this. I'm not going to share names or anything, but we do these, I'm telling way more of the story than I need to tell, but I was working with a sales director at one of our communities, and we were talking about a lead that he was working with. And as he was describing the lead, I was like, I really think that this person might be gay. And he was like, well, I might have suspected, I don't know. And so I'm like, do this. And so I was like, send out our calendar of events that are coming up, make sure all of the different kinds of events are included, but let's make sure that our Pride happy hour is listed and it's visible and easy to see. And then, we did a couple other things, and the person deposited today, put down a waitlist deposit, and also communicated with the sales director that they were gay. And I was like, we win! Because it's creating a space where people subtly, without it being in your face, could feel completely safe to show up and engage. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and I was going to say the couple at Montrose.
Yes.
About them.
Yes, that's where I was going to go. Yeah, that reminded me, we've got another couple at one of our communities, and they did they put us through the ringer to make sure — the ringer's a little too intensive a phrase, but they wanted to be sure before they deposited and moved in with us that we were going to be accepting. And so that was such a crazy pivot in anything, I think, even at the beginning of turnaround solutions, that we would have thought was a thing. And yeah, it's here and it happened. And so our work is creating value. And we've got other residents that are they are so proud to get to celebrate Pride because they had to be closeted. They had to live lives that were not true to them for so many years. And so we have now created a space where they can bring their entire Rainbow Pride collection and celebrate the month every single day, and feel accepted. And that's just that's so great.
Well, I think too, the other thing is I think fundamentally as an organization, we believe that our residents have the ability to learn and grow and change. And so for residents who might not have ever been presented an opportunity to learn about people who were different or cultures who were different, I think that this, making a commitment to at least educate and talk about Pride. And over the years, we have seen that residents who might not have felt comfortable asking to learn about it or comfortable reaching out on their own to figure it out, but being given an opportunity to, they become more comfortable with the topic. I'm recalling stories in our Ohio market where residents one year were just adamantly against the experience, and then the next year were more open, and then that made them feel more comfortable to talk to their grandkids who might be a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And so it's just it's created this evolution year over year. And again, it's not been easy. I don't want to imply that it's like rainbows and butterflies, because although there are rainbows, sometimes the rainbows can be taken and thrown in the trash. And residents can rally and be like, we're not doing this. But again, it's kind of like if we present a united front and we kind of stay firm, that fair, firm, and consistent in how we approach it, I think it does evolve. It does change.
I think one thing we haven't touched on that is really important that I want to hit is, I feel like for anybody that sees this that is in senior living, you might have this perception of like, well, my community, my residents, my teams, like they're not interested in this. I don't want to do this because it's not for us. Nobody's interested. And one of the things I want to say to that question that I just posed, so I could answer it myself, is that we should never assume anything about anybody, because we, like, the stories we've told, the stories we haven't told, because there are a couple I'm getting ready to add, like, we've been so blown away by some of the responses. We had one community that this, I think, is a different story than the one Amanda was just saying. We had one community that the first year they were kind of not into it. The next year, the president of their council was against it and they kicked her out because they were like, absolutely not. Like, we are an inclusive and accepting place. We have loved ones in this community. We are going to celebrate it, and you are not going to represent us with those views anymore. And that was such a crazy moment where we were like, oh my gosh, we did something. We made a difference somewhere. We saved that one. And so that was just so cool. And we do our D&I conversations, which I think we probably talked about on our first one, and dabbled in a little bit here. But our first and second Pride conversations were with Jeffrey Marsh. And we had, for the first one, a very lovely lady who was a school teacher in Oklahoma for elementary school. And she was the resident that engaged in it. And if you'd never met her, if you just read her little resume, there's not a world where you'd be like, oh my gosh, this lady is going to want to be in this conversation. And it was one of my favorite D&Is that has ever existed. She learned about pronouns. She learned how they worked. She continues to, like, in talking to her in years since, like, she continues to try to practice that to get it right, because it does matter, and she gets it now. And so if we were basing on assumptions, there's not a world where we would have been like, we should talk to this lady. And we would have missed out on one of the most magical things I feel like we've ever created, because it was such a great conversation. I still love watching it. And our residents do love engaging in these things. It's just, we assumed and didn't put it out there because it was going to be hard. And then when we did, it was hard, but it is also really cool.
Well, I was thinking too, we started out with just like a simple conversation, and our Pride celebrations have really evolved, and not always because of us like continuing to challenge, but I think about Austin up in Ohio, Austin Marsh, who was a resident services director for us, a business office director for us, and now he sits as a lead ops coordinator for us in the market. But like last year, Austin, I don't know what inspired him to do it, but he's like, I would like us to get a group of people together and go be a part of the Cleveland Pride Parade. And now this is the second year that he's organizing that. And nobody asked Austin to do that. But like, I was so happy to see everyone who participated and to see residents wearing our Pride shirts and walking in the Pride Parade at a time when I thought that nobody was ever going to be really accepting of that, was a really big moment, I thought, for us as an organization. And so I don't know.
And that's where the shirts came from. That was Austin inspired the You Matter shirt.
Yes.
With his ask. And I have to say, like, even though we were really excited to be a part of it and that he brought it to us, like, Austin drove the bus. It was not us driving anybody anywhere. It was something he wanted. He figured out how to make it happen. And that's another really cool layer, is seeing our team members take this on and evolve it in new ways we would have never gotten to. Last year we had another resident services director that hosted Drag Queen Bingo. And it was just the videos. I still love watching them, because she said she wasn't sure about it. She was nervous. And even the residents she said who weren't sure that they really wanted to do it, but like they liked bingo, so they went. She said it was universally a great time. Everybody ended up enjoying it because
That's how
drag
you
queen
do it.
bingo is not scary. It's fun.
You gotta have bingo involved, and nobody will say no. I love
Bingo
it.
has magic powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did have a question come through, which I think will be great. But what has been Arrow's greatest accomplishment regarding Pride since beginning its recognition and celebration? So I know we talked about a lot of examples, but what would you say is the greatest accomplishment so far?
That we're still doing it.
Yeah.
And that's continuing to grow in momentum. I mean, I think there are tons of little wins or tons of stories that have happened over the course of our time doing it, but the fact that it feels accepted and expected 4 years in, I think is a big win for us.
Yeah, definitely. It would have been easy to say after those flags were thrown away, okay, we're done. That hurt. Like that hurts your heart.
Yeah, it really did.
It's easy to be like, okay, I don't want my heart to hurt anymore, but that's what growth is. So
yeah, I mean, Rachel, I think that's a really impactful way to say that. But I mean, so the thing that I know we're coming up on our half hour, but the situation Rachel's talking about is there was a community that we had in the Bible Belt of Missouri, is that like, and we had a resident donate flags, pride flags, and the community had put them out in celebration of the event. And which, when I saw that, I was so proud. I was like, oh my gosh, if I was working at this community and I walked up and I saw, I mean, I would know that this is a place that I could be and I would be welcome. And then the next morning, the community wakes up and somebody has taken all of the flags that the resident donated and they threw it in the trash. And I will tell you, I wasn't the best version of myself in that moment, because I came back and I'm like, I will just donate to the Trevor Project in honor of every single person at that community. And that caused quite a big stir where the residents were like, please do not donate in our name. We don't want, and I mean, it was the drama of all dramas at the time. But I think, going through that experience, it wasn't really, it hurt. There was some embarrassment. Like there was some self-doubt for sure of like, should we really be pushing this? Should we really be continuing to do this? And I think, didn't last year somebody post on social media or do a letter saying that in that specific community, they were like talking about, they were giving us ways that we could celebrate Pride better, if I remember correctly, how that response had come back. And so it's interesting how time evolves. And
you mentioned the Trevor Project, so I don't want us to run out of time before we say this, but Rachel put, I think Rachel was posing as Arrow Senior Living, in the chat, the link, should you be inspired by Amanda's shirt, proceeds from the shirt go to Sage USA, which is an advocate for LGBTQ plus seniors. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we said that at the beginning. If we did, then we're bookending it, but I want to make sure it was said.
Which is special shout out to Austin again, because if we hadn't made the shirt, we wouldn't have thought to put it online. We wouldn't have thought to do a fundraiser to make a donation. So all in all, good begets good. I don't know.
Yeah. That sounds good.
I hope if nothing else, people who are within our industry leave this conversation with, if you're not already celebrating Pride moments, you're considering having those conversations to talk about how you could potentially do it. And like, we are here as a resource. We are not experts. But I would say this: if you don't know where to start too, I do think that there are people like Ayana out in the world who want to help you foster conversations, facilitate conversations, provide education to help navigate next steps in the conversation. And it's definitely worth taking the step. Did we do it? I think we did it.
I think we did it.
Yeah. Well, join us next week. We are going to have an HR topic for next week's call. So we will see you all then.
Wait, what's the topic? Stephanie Hood's coming, and she's going to be talking about.
We're going to be talking about like our job fairs and orientation processes and things like that we do a little bit differently. Interview styles.
Yeah.
All good stuff. So
All right.
it'll be
So
good.
a fun HR topic.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
All right. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.